Life is a choice. And, with my work, I play with the law of attraction a lot. And the law of attraction doesn't decipher if things are positive or negative. It brings you where you are, the feelings that you're having, what you're choosing to experience. So it doesn't say, hey, look, you're thinking negatively, but I'll bring all these positive things to you. No, it's like the law of attraction's activated by what we're feeling and thinking and how we speak, our words.
Hello, everyone. I am Deepika Sandhu, the CEO of Soul Sparks Press, and you are going to love our next soul-sparking conversation with the amazing Rhonda Hudson. Rhonda, welcome.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
I am absolutely excited by your upcoming book. You have got to tell us more about it.
Well, I'm excited too. This is like a transmission. When I received this, I was blown away because it was like a blessings of Alzheimer's and dementia, God's gift to humanity. And I was like, what? And I was on a plane. And so when that happened, I was like, this is such a turn or a spin on how people have talked to me about Alzheimer's and dementia. And it's funny because I think throughout this experience with my father, this was everyone's response. Is like, this is the worst thing that you could ever experience. And there was something in me and in my heart that said, no, this isn't the worst experience. I can't go with that. That doesn't feel right. And so when the book title came in and I sat on the plane for 10 hours writing all this stuff, it was just like a complete download. And I sat there and it was showing me like, this is why it's a blessing. And this is the different way that we can see this. And this is a gift to humanity because if we can change collectively how we look at this and how we feel this and how we embrace this and how we actually experience this, then we're raising the consciousness. We're raising awareness. We're stepping and taking responsibility for what we're creating.
So tell me this, Rhonda. People hear about dementia, they hear about any disease that's out there, and it is really hard for them to see any kind of blessing in this. And I know in your book, you're reframing this for everyone, but give us an example of a blessing that you have had from experiencing this disease with your father.
It's fascinating. The one thing, and this is not just the experience I've had with my dad, because now that my dad's in a memory care, and before that he was in assisted living with people who were experiencing Alzheimer's and dementia. And if you've been in a room with people like this or who are experiencing these diagnoses, the one thing is they bring you into the present moment. And we have to ask ourselves, how often are we there? Because if you go into the room and you're on your phone, or you're listening to something, or you're focused somewhere else and you're not with them, they don't want you there. They don't want you to be there with them. They want your full attention. And if it's for 5 seconds or 30 seconds or 5 minutes, that's what they're ready to accept. And anytime that you're not there fully present with them, they're not interested.
So a reminder for you of how critical being in the presence was dealing with your dad experiencing this condition.
And this is where the magic is. The magic is in the present moment. This is where all the exponential possibilities exist. And so it was like each and every time I would be with him or with anyone that was having this diagnosis or going through this experience, it was like bringing me back there. How can I be present with them? Maybe it's listening. Maybe it's playing with them. Maybe it's going into the stories or the imagination that they're actually tapping into. And there was like a huge amount of energy that filled my space and me being able to stay present with them, not thinking I want to redirect them or I want to reframe them or I want to tell them something about me. It was like, no, this is about you. And I was able to be there and allow myself to just receive fully what they were experiencing. And it was a gift.
But feeling fully what someone is experiencing when they have a disease, and it could be anything, but in your father's case, dementia. For so many people out there, that can feel so heavy and so hard. But yet you are experiencing it in a way that is almost bringing you more and more to the light. What advice do you give that person who's feeling it, who thinks they're in the present with their parent or loved one, but is feeling all that heaviness of that experience?
Often I would sit there, and believe me, this has been a learning process and it's been a learning experience. And I knew when I was feeling heavy or irritated, there's quite a few things that I've played with, but this is an opportunity for anyone to sit there and ask themselves, this is a choice. Life is a choice. And with my work, I play with the law of attraction a lot. And the law of attraction doesn't decipher if things are positive or negative. It brings you where you are, the feelings that you're having, what you're choosing to experience. So it doesn't say, hey, look, you're thinking negatively, but I'll bring all these positive things to you. No, it's like the law of attraction is activated by what we're feeling and thinking and how we speak, our words, because our words are so powerful. So what this has brought me is like, Rhonda, this is a choice. Right here, when you're with your dad or when you're in any experience, you're choosing how you want to see it. You're choosing what you want to bring or benefit from this. And that felt so empowering to me. And all of a sudden, my choices started to change and my experience started to change. And the law of attraction started to bring me more of what I wanted. And I wanted to be present with my dad. And I want to be present with everyone.
And for somebody out there experiencing death and dying and all of this grief that comes with disease and experiencing these kinds of diseases, they get to attract in the experience of what they would like to see with this, right? So you're really giving them permission to go, what if we could rethink what this is in this moment? And can we bring more peace, more light, more presence to this moment? I think that's really beautiful.
I love the word that you said, or the phrase that you said, permission. It's so key for us to give ourselves permission. It's so important for us to remember that we can give ourselves permission to choose. And that is such a powerful, powerful statement.
So how did you get to this point that you were able to have these realizations? What has Rhonda's journey been on? You're Californian, living in Monaco. You've had a very colorful life. Tell us how you get to this piece of awareness now.
There was always a desire in me. So I was raised non-denominational, and I sat in church with my parents or my mom, and I just sat there and I'm like, this doesn't feel right. And so from that point on, I chose to find out more. I became super curious and I wanted to study religions. I wanted to study anything. I wanted to find peace inside myself. And more than that, we were just talking about grief. I wanted to find love, but not conditional love, because that's the only thing that I felt like I was experiencing. And I wanted to find love from a perspective that there are no conditions, because true love, real love, has no conditions. And I didn't know what that felt like. So I was on a mission to find out. And, it's been a tug of war. It's been a path. It's been a journey of like experiencing love without conditions and love with conditions. And each and every time, the desire to experience love more and more without conditions has really been my motivating factor.
And that love journey led you to so many different kinds of healing practices and spiritual practices. Talk to us about some of the ones that you feel have most impacted your life.
Well, let's see. There's quite a few. I'm thankful to my mom, and I'm thankful she put me in preschool like 3 years old or something like that. And this is where I started to learn how to meditate. I was one of those childs, like I didn't want to miss out on any fun. And so at 3 years old, we had nap time at 1 p.m. every day. And if you fell asleep, then your parents showed up and picked you up and you didn't get to play more. And so what happened is that they ring a bell. So they put you on these cots, and we had like 20 kids on a cot, and they'd ring a bell. And if you heard the bell, then you can get up very quietly and go out and play. So it was like 30, 40 minutes that they let us rest. And I would just remember to stay present, but just relax. And that was really the very beginning of learning how to meditate or learning how to tap into source. Because it was just like this rejuvenation. It was like I'd get up after 30 minutes or 40 minutes. And I was like, I had so much energy. And I started to practice that throughout my life. And even in high school, I set my like free period at 1 o'clock right after lunch, so that I could go into the gym and just chill. And this became a part of my life. So I would say meditation is a big part of how I started to understand more and more about myself. And then I love Kundalini yoga. I'm a Kundalini yoga teacher, and I started doing Kundalini in the 1990s and then moved to Europe. And I was like, where's my teachers? And there was no teachers around. So I went ahead and went through the teacher training course. And I feel like I am Kundalini. There's over 3,000 practices, kriyas, movements, meditations. I mean, it's just like endless. So you're never experiencing the same thing. However, when I look at it, it's like a download for me. I'm like, I already know this. And so when I'm able to teach this, and actually even when I do this, it's like, wow, there's so much that opens up. So I have meditation, I have breath work too. I love breath work. Breath work is so powerful. And when I'm working with my clients, a lot of the times, if we get stuck, we go into breath work. And there's so many aspects of breath work, so many types of breath work. So from beginners to advanced people, you can start breathing from pranayama to like full-on holotropic breath work, somatic breath work, rebirthing breath work, to really deep stuff. And I always like to explain it, it's like 30 hours or 20 hours of therapy, in one breath work session. And then I also dabble with plant medicine. So I really have found throughout my life that I think it was back in my 20s, I was trekking through Mexico with a group, and we were introduced to a sweat lodge where we were introduced to peyote. And it was the first time I had ever tried a cactus, So this has been woven in and out of my life. It's not something I depend on, but when I feel like there's something to shift, then I absolutely check into that and see what comes up for me. And so I've played around with ayahuasca to peyote to kanna to kambo, which is one of my favorites. Kambo is like a purification process. So if you've never done it, it's not for everyone. It's not for the faint of heart. But I really have found in my life that it's been an amazing way to purify my body, my spirit, my energy body.
So someone sitting at home listening to you, they're inspired, they're hearing what you're saying, they want to shift their relationship with whatever situation or circumstance that they're dealing with. Maybe they're dealing with something similar to what you are with a aging parent in memory care, dealing with dementia. Your Kundalini yoga practices and any of the other breathwork practices that you do, what is something you want them to try at home to just tap into themselves, to start to see the light in the darkness that they're facing right now?
A breath I use with my dad a lot, so this is like very beginning, he's never done breathing work before, is what I would call a box breath, where you're like counting. So you inhale to the count of 4, you hold that breath to the count of 4, you drop the breath, so you exhale to the count of 4, and then you hold the breath out. And it's this really incredible, it's a very grounding and embodying breath. And so let's say you're stressed or you have some anxiety or you're caught in a loop of a thought process and you can't shake it. When you can drop into this breath, I find it so, so powerful. That's one that I like a lot because sometimes we can't get past the thought. So when you start to follow the breath and then you have to hold it and then you let it drop in and then you hold it out, then all of a sudden you're creating a different rhythm, and that rhythm starts to shift from the thought that you were holding on to opening space within inside yourself.
That is so beautiful. And something as simple and as natural as just taking an intentional breath can really shift so much within us, right? It causes us to be in the present, which you spoke about a little bit ago. It allows us to really connect in with ourselves and trust ourselves, right? And as we're connecting and trusting, we're allowing ourselves to shift the thinking within us, shift the feeling, the sensation, the energy within us. All that from some box breathing.
And I know a lot of people say, oh, well, my parent wouldn't be able to do that. But my dad, when he calls me and he's like, I don't know where I'm at, and he goes, I don't know how to get back. And I'm like, okay. And he can actually follow the instruction of this breath and the other breaths that we play with. So it's like, don't be afraid to try. Even if you think, oh, well, they'll never be able to do this or they're not going to be able to follow me, I think we would be really surprised that the more playful we are in trying things, and especially with breathing, it's the one thing I found that's been the most magnificent for my dad and what gets him back into himself the fastest.
I love that you said play with, because I think so many people think that all of these different practices, all the different ways we can move into spirituality, that there's work or there's effort or there's something they got to learn, something they're going to do. Breathing is natural. We're doing it right now and we're not even talking, like it's just happening, right? And if we can play with that and just enjoy this process of learning different modalities, different tools, or just breathing, it can be so beautiful and so powerful and so connecting.
Absolutely. And it's that simple. Sometimes we think, oh, we got to go for the complicated stuff, right? And we're like, oh, we got to read this and we got to study this and there's all these steps and da-da-da, and did I forget something? And we're back here. But when you bring something into your life that's so simple, you're here, you're in your heart. And this is where all the magic takes place.
I think I'm having some soul sparks talking to you right now. This is so beautiful, so phenomenal. What is one thing you want to leave people out there with that they can remember today?
Oh, so gosh, there's been so much going on. I know that a lot of people feel grief around this topic, Alzheimer's and dementia, and maybe they can't get themselves to a place to think, how can this be a blessing? But what I'd like to leave everyone with is that moving through the grief allows you to tap into the one universal thing that we all have, and that's love. So knowing that, giving yourself permission to go there, to be in the grief at whatever level or at whatever place you need to be there, because there's one thing that's under the surface of that. So go ahead and dive in. Give yourself the permission. Let it come into you, and then find out through curiosity, the what ifs, what's underlying, because it's magic.
I love it. This has been a magical conversation. Thank you so much, Rhonda, for sharing your story. And if you would like to share your soul sparking story just like Rhonda did, reach out to Soul Sparks Press.